consumer prices are rising faster than at any time from 1980 to just before COVID. So they're going to be cutting into a higher consumer price environment, and that means they will destroy the currency.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for August 25th through September 1st, 2025, while supplies last. First this week, 1-ounce gold Britannia are just $60 over spot per ounce. Next, 1/10-ounce gold Canadian maples are only $35 over melt per coin. 1-ounce silver maples are just $2.89 over spot. And 1-ounce silver kangaroos are only $2.79 over spot per ounce. And with a 250-ounce monster box, they're the lowest priced monster box available. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is our good friend Rafi Farber from the Endgame Investor on Substack. Rafi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey Elijah, good to be back. I'm good to be back home.
Well, it's great to see you back home there. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm relaxed. Glad I got home without any more wars breaking out, or at least any more fighting other than what is already going on. So that was a relief. And ready to get back to the routine.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to see you again, Rafi. I did want to discuss some of the topics you've been discussing on your YouTube channel. One of them was about gold revaluation, and we've talked quite a bit about that on this channel and with you. You've talked about different periods throughout the U.S. history where we've kind of seen a gold revaluation back in 1933, and then also if you count it as gold revaluing itself between when Nixon took us off the gold window up to the peak of the gold bull market in 1980, we saw huge runs in gold, and we also saw huge inflation during both of those periods. So can you explain for our viewers why you expect possibly a gold revaluation soon, and then also its impact on prices?
I want to talk about this in the context of course, gold being money and the dollar only being a derivative of it. And that's always hard. I keep going back to that because that's the number one message, but it's hard to keep it in your head and to take it seriously. Like people treat it like, oh, it's just a religious statement, like, God is one, whatever, but you don't really know what that means. But you have to understand what it means that gold is the money. If the gold is the money, then every time the price of gold moves, it's revaluing the dollar. Gold doesn't actually get revalued. The dollar is being revalued. Now, the question is, are we talking about statutory revaluation or market-based revaluation? You just cited two examples, one being 1933, which was statutory, right? FDR just decided, maybe on some advisement, maybe on a whim. I remember I read when I was turning libertarian when I was younger, I was reading one of Glenn Beck's books, decide if he's the path I wanted to go on. Ultimately, no, he wasn't. He was an influence, but I never really went down his path. But he was talking about, I think in his book, Broke, how FDR just decided on a whim to make it 35. I don't know, he was just like flipping numbers in his head and he decided that was the one. Could be true, I don't know. And then you were talking about the revaluation in 1980, where the price of gold in the market that you could get a gold coin for to shop was what was being revalued, and that hit 872 or 850, wherever you want to count the top. And ultimately, these are really the same thing. Right? They're brought about in different ways, and that's but they are monetarily speaking. What is happening in the monetary system? It's the same thing. It just the difference is who's acting upon it. Like if a 50-kilogram weight drops on your head, you're not going to really care that much if it was, like, say, a meteor from God. Or let's say somebody had sinister would drop something on your head from 100 feet above you, or drop the piano on you. Either way, you're dead. It doesn't make a difference. So I don't think we're going to have a statutory gold revaluation. And what happens during a statutory gold revaluation? Well, you look at the price inflation statistics, which we have from the 1930s. And in April 1933, I think the deflationary, and I'm talking about consumer prices, the deflationary statistics were something like -9% a year. And then by about 10 to 12 months after the revaluation from 21 to 35, price inflation shot up to positive 10, 15% or something like that, like a huge move. And really that was the point, because by revaluing, that gave FDR's government, or the Fed under him or beside him or whatever, the ability to print more money based on that gold revaluation, and then the inflation came from there. But in 1980, it was by the market itself, when the market decided that the other stuff on the Fed's balance sheet was not trustworthy. So it bid up the value of the gold to back the rest of the assets on the Fed's balance sheet, which is mostly debt, to 100%. And that made the rest of the debt trustworthy. Now the question is, what percentage of gold backing the rest of the Fed's balance sheet would make the rest of the treasuries trustworthy to hold for people? And if we go to the 1980 numbers, it's something like $40,000 to $50,000. So people think of that number and they're like, oh, this guy's a crazy gold bug. But it happened before. And once it happens, I'm going to get rid of my gold. I'm going to buy stuff. I'm not going to buy dollars. I'm not going to sell it for dollars. I'm going to buy things. And I'm going to call it the end of this game. I'm going to move on with my life. And we'll see what I do after that. But I know where the bell is, because we've had 1980. So that's what I'm waiting for.
Now that $40,000 per ounce, that's based on kind of the relative valuations of other items as well, or the monetary, how many dollars there actually are out in existence at the moment?
It's not dollars. There are different kinds of dollars out in existence, right? There's the monetary base, which is the stuff that's on the Fed's balance sheet. Like when the Fed buys an asset, it creates new dollars and gives them to whoever gave them the asset. That's base dollars. And then you have commercial bank deposits, which are created through loans and other activities, which are built upon that base. So the number 40, 50,000 is based not on commercial bank money and not on the M2. The M2 is base money plus all the loans that are made piled on top of it. Just talking about the monetary base. The monetary base itself is the balance sheet, and all the assets on the balance sheet. And then you have a little bit of gold, 235 million ounces, the unaudited, whatever. Let's just assume it's there. So if we were to take the monetary base and take all the value of that in dollars, and then the tiny amount of gold it has on its balance sheet, 235 million ounces, if we are to equate the dollar value of those 235 million ounces to the rest of the pile on the balance sheet, which is the monetary base, it would have to be I think it's about 50,000, or it could be 55,000, somewhere around there, like between 40 and 50 or something like that. It doesn't really make a difference. But that's what we're talking about. I'm not talking about covering M2. I don't think we're going to get there, because to cover M2 is what, like 21 trillion, whereas the monetary base is like 5.6 trillion. It had to be 4 times that. I don't think we're going to see $200,000 gold. I think the dollar's going to break before that. So that's the calculation we're talking about.
It's interesting when you're mentioning FDR and how revaluing gold kind of allowed the government just to create, or the Fed just to create more currency. What is being, I guess, not proposed explicitly by the powers that be, but those in our space who are suggesting gold revaluation, is that it would kind of put an asset on the government's balance sheet, right? Revalue that asset to current prices or even higher, and maybe help the debt situation. But it sounds like it maybe could be used as an excuse to create more currency, or to go further into debt at that point. So it doesn't seem like it would be a way to get the government's fiscal situation under control.
Right. There is no getting the government's fiscal situation under control without destroying the banking system. The government, it's hard to say how much they believe in what they're saying, these position papers, and how much is propaganda and how much they're just making it up. I don't know. But the way that they're thinking about it, they say, look, we have this gold. It's not really 42. If we just stop lying, then we have all this free money and we don't have to raise taxes and we don't have to increase the debt. it seems like free money, right? How could you go wrong? And if you don't understand that gold is money, and if you revalue the gold dollar ratio, you're not changing what money is, you're changing what the dollar is. And if you change what the dollar is, that affects all prices down the line very quickly, not overnight, but within, months. When FDR did it, it was a 66% revaluation. It took about a year to get to maximum price, consumer price inflation. So if you don't, I don't think anyone in the government understands that gold is the money right now. And because they don't understand that, they see this as like a mathematical trick that can just, give them manna from heaven, free money. And they say like, why don't we just do that? And then the only reason they don't, I think, is because maybe there's some traditionalist people, or maybe they don't fully buy into their voodoo. And they're like, maybe this is not such a good idea. It's like Louis C.K.'s famous comedy bit, of course, but maybe, of course, free money is great, but maybe destroying the dollar isn't such a good idea. They're not sure about it. So we'll see what they do. And if they don't do it, the market's going to do it anyway.
You mentioned the connection with the banking system as well and the U.S. fiscal situation. You were recently posted on X, actually, that kind of Jerome Powell has an option to either save the dollar or save the banking system. So why do you see it kind of as a either or situation here?
That's always the either or. When we start playing the inflationary game, you are playing the game of the currency versus the banks. You can save one, but not the other. And now, as you go up the pyramid, you can juggle, right? So as we go up the pyramid, this pyramid, let's say it started in 1933 with that initial revaluation, then you can juggle that pyramid and only hike when price inflation goes higher, when consumer prices go higher faster, and cut only when they stop accelerating as fast. And the reason you can keep juggling is because of the analogy that I often use, the apple tree, the orange tree in your backyard, right? If you have incredible production, you don't notice that your neighbor is stealing from you. But if your neighbor invites his cronies to his your backdoor neighbor, and they want to eat more and more and more oranges, which is the equivalent of the government growing bigger and bigger and bigger, because that's how it always happens, then you can keep consumer prices lower by increasing productivity. But there's a point where you can't increase productivity any longer, and you're overburdening the slaves, and they can't make the tree any more productive. So at that point you have to start cutting into an accelerating consumer prices environment, which is where the Federal Reserve is headed now, because this is what just happened like a week or two ago, right? They were urging Powell the Trump administration was urging Powell to cut, and he was saying, he hinted no, he's not going to do it because consumer prices are rising too fast. And then he came out in Jackson Hole and said, well, we're going to cut now. And then gold and silver jumped. Consumer prices are rising faster than at any time from 1980 to just before COVID. So they're going to be cutting into a higher consumer price environment, and that means they will destroy the currency. Until now, they've always only cut into what they call recessions, when consumer prices stop rising and you have this huge banking crisis. So you can pick, I'll save the banks, and the currency will level out in consumer prices. But now they can either trigger hyperinflation by cutting to zero in an environment of very fast rising prices, or they can not cut at all and let the banks fall, and then everything goes with it, and all prices fall, consumer prices too, but they fall the slowest compared to everything else, including assets like stocks, bonds, Bitcoin, all those other things. Consumer prices still fall, but however it goes, it doesn't make a difference for gold and silver holders, because all the purchasing power goes into those metals anyway.
Now, with respect to the gold market, you actually highlighted a really interesting thing that's been happening, where if you look at the gold price spreads between different maturities, they're quite dramatic actually at the moment. And as we've seen that spread increase in the past, it has actually signified a financial crisis coming soon after that spread increases. So can you kind of explain this, and what does it foretell about the financial system in the coming months?
Okay, so I'm guessing here as to a causal or a rational, let's say, Austrian view of what is going on, or a positivist view. You try to link it up to why humans would behave in such a way that this would precede a financial crisis. So I think what you're talking about is there was a chart that I saw on Gold Charts R Us of the gold maturities from spot all the way to the farthest out future, and I noticed that in 2007 up to the 2008 financial crisis, the spread really got pretty thick. Right. And also in 2019, from the repocalypse, from when the repo rates started to spike up and the Fed had to restart QE, until and especially through 2020 during the lockdowns, they really got pretty thick also. And they're doing it again. It's been that way since, I think, 2023, since the regional banking crisis. I might be a little bit off on the dates. I haven't seen the chart in a while, but why would this be? And I don't have a perfect answer, but if there are problems with the dollar, then what you would see is spot gold going pretty high relative to other maturities, but going out into the future I think you would compress in the middle, and then the price would go higher out into the future, because you'd have speculators that are also worried about the dollar, because they're using gold to speculate because they see something wrong with the dollar. But also you have the people at the mouth of the pipe, the big banks, and they are going after spot gold itself. So you're having these like kind of zigzaggy, wavy maturity scheme, and I think that's what's happening now. But you'd have to look at a chart of this. It's available on Gold Charts R Us to see all the maturities and the different colors of the lines, and they get wider as we get closer to a crisis. So the chart goes back to, I think, 2005, 2006. The only time I've seen the maturities be this spread out are 2008, 2020, and now. So the question is it happening again? And there are other signs that corroborate it. How far out are we? I don't think we're very far. People say, like, I've been around since 2020 saying the same stuff, but it's 2025. Even 5 years is not that much time. I know that's kind of a cop-out, but it's also true, and gold is still money. I mean, it doesn't really matter, because I know what the truth is. People can say what they want, but the reality is reality. It's not going to change.
It is just very interesting when we speak to you about all these different signs that you're seeing. This is just another data point showing that, it seems like we're nearing some sort of crisis. And a lot of people have talked about how it might not be, you've talked about the end game, right? Where we see currency failure. A lot of people have suggested we might just kind of move into a new system, whether it be central bank digital currency or something else. If the dollar fails. Your take on that, and also there's been a lot of talk about the Genius Act that Trump signed into law that really creates the possibility for a lot of stable coins. And I talked with Gregory Manarino about this, and David Morgan, about how this is sort of a way to introduce, maybe it could be a way to introduce central bank digital currency as kind of a back way, because obviously central bank digital currency was not very popular among the public, but these stable coins also seem to pose a threat to freedom and liberty in a similar way. What is your view on the Genius Act, and could it be an option for the government to kind of replace the current monetary system with?
No, it's not going to replace anything. We're on a pyramid. The pyramid begins with gold, goes up derivative layer by derivative layer to where we are now. And there's a lot of derivative layers, and you can argue about what layer is which layer and where is it in the pyramid and all this stuff, and it's very complex. But there's no getting out of this pyramid without it either falling over or building a new layer that looks new, but it's really based on everything that's on before. Right? All you can do is build one more layer. So if they do this Genius Act and stablecoins, and obviously there are serious threats to personal liberty involved with stablecoins. Fine, I don't dispute that at all, and I know that the government wants to take as much liberty as they can from us, reasonably as much as they can reasonably get away with. They tried taking away almost all of it in COVID. There was backlash, and Trump got reelected. I'm really oversimplifying, I know, but I don't have time to get into geopolitics here or anything like that. But what the Stablecoin Act or the Genius Act, whatever they're calling it, can do is it can turn T-bills into a more liquid asset by making them tradable. If people are going to take stable coins as settlement for payment, then it turns T-bills into basically dollars. So the Fed wouldn't have to monetize that debt as quickly, theoretically. But sooner or later there's going to be a crisis anyway, and then everyone with stable coins is going to they're going to need cash, so they're going to have to sell out of their stable coins to get dollars, and there's going to be a rush on dollars, and then Fed's going to have to monetize it anyway because all of this pyramid is still there, and all prices from today are still based on yesterday. No matter what the hell you do, there's no getting out of that ever. Just like there's no breaking the law of gravity, you cannot fly without counteracting gravity with an opposite force pushing down. It's not possible. So at that time when suddenly there's a dollar crunch and everyone has to get out of their stable coins to pay their bills, right? Then the Fed's going to have to take those T-bills, turn them into dollars by buying the T-bills, giving dollars to whoever needs to give dollars to whoever has the stable coins. We're going to be in the same place we are now. So the most this can do is provide a little bit more liquidity on the top of the pyramid. But I guess an analogy would be like instead of like a really heavy brick on the top, right, on the top layer, you'd put, let's say, I don't know, something a little more jiggly, maybe like Jell-O on the top. So you can build it higher, but it's like a lot weaker, and like a little bit of sun can melt it, and then it just falls over anyway. That's the analogy that just came to my head. Jell-O.
I think it makes perfect sense that people are not going to be fooled necessarily by a new system. It's almost just like natural law that we have to go back to something real, right? That's just how money works, is we have to, if we go onto a fiat currency, people eventually lose trust in fiat currency. And you can't just, as you mentioned, just, put a Band-Aid on it. The whole system has to crash and then rebuild from the bottom up using precious metals as money. So I think that's a very while the end game could be very destructive and hurt in a lot of ways, coming out of it seems like you have a very hopeful view.
I do have a very hopeful view. I think we're going to be fine. Not everyone. I think a lot of people that have no idea not only what money is, most people don't know what money is, and that's okay. You don't have to know. But most people who don't know what human interaction is, don't know what community is, don't know what faith is, don't know what morality is, and there's a lot more of those people in the big cities, they're going to be in a lot of trouble spiritually, mentally, physically, and all that. The people that have a general idea of what it is to be human, they'll do a lot better. And I think there's more of us than we think there are. A lot of them they're not interested in gold and silver, but it doesn't mean they don't understand a lot more. And once they see that gold and silver are rising and the purchasing power is going into them, they'll follow and they'll be fine and we'll be fine. And it's going to be rough. Not everyone is going to survive, but those that do are going to make this world a much better place. And I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Rafi, if our viewers are interested in learning more about kind of how to prepare for an endgame scenario, they can go to your Substack, endgameinvestor.substack.com. We'll put a link right there next to your name in the description here. Are there any last thoughts you'd like to leave with our viewers?
Keep living life as you've been living it. I mean, get better, become better people. Don't imagine that there's going to be an extinction level event and we're all going to die, or there's going to be a mass nuclear war or anything like that. I don't think that's going to happen. And anyway, if I did, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be in a bunker already. So calm down, be human, stay in touch with your local community, and enjoy the end game, because even though it's going to be rough, a lot of it's going to be fun. I don't know exactly which parts, but that's the best way to think of it, at least for me.
Fantastic. Well, Rafi, Farber, thank you so much for your time today, and God bless.
Thank you, Elijah.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for August 25th through September 1st, 2025, while supplies last. First this week, 1 ounce gold Britannia are just $60 over spot per ounce. Next, 1 10th ounce gold Canadian maples are only $35 over melt per coin. 1 ounce silver maples are just $2.89 over spot. And 1 ounce silver kangaroos are only $2.79 over spot per ounce. And with a 250 ounce monster box, they're the lowest priced monster box available. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.